a sixth full-length by a band credited with inventing black gaze, a fifth effort from an LA-based hip-hop trio, the fourth LP by an American indie pop band, and 2 debuts. The first seeing one half of the Lemon Twigs go it alone, and the second a highly anticipated effort from a rising Nottingham band. This is 5 to 9's Album of the Month episode for March 2025. I'm Andrew Belt, editor of the 5 to 9 blog, and joining me is Karl Blakesley of New Music Central. And we welcome back Kiley Larsen, the founder of Santa Fe record label Mañana Records, after missing February's episode. So Kiley, how is all with you?
All is fantastic.
Everything.
Yeah, it's all, it's all things that in the end is going to be well worth it.
Yes.
The process, I'm in it.
And there'll be more on that for sure. So, how are you keeping, Karl?
Yeah, good. Sun is finally out, which is always good over here. It's not always a given that we'll get sun in April, so always light is the mood.
Darkness. And we're now seeing some light again, and even feeling a bit of the sun, which is well overdue for sure. So there we go. So before we get into the albums, it's customary to run through what else might have caught our eye during the month. So Kiley, I'll start with you first. I mean, what were your highlights from March aside from the 5 albums we're going to go into?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of really fine records that I enjoyed. I think most of all, Wolfpack, their latest Clarity of Cal. They're just a good time, funk soul, a little bit of electronic stuff. And I think for some reason, their last couple of records weren't really landing with me. They don't necessarily do anything outside their wheelhouse. You know what you're going to get, but for some reason, Clarity of Cal is, I think maybe last month I was just so hungry for some sunshine. And that one has been kind of my go-to to play before, putting on a show. And it's one too that I've had a bunch of people come up and ask what it is, because it just kind of sets a fun mood for the evening. So highly recommend that. My poll submission that didn't make it, Sasami, Blood on the Silver Screen. She's just continues to be amazing. Another solid record from her. And then Twin Shadow, who takes me back to 10 years ago living in New York when he was kind of in his heyday. And Georgie is his latest, named after his father who recently passed away. And he wrote this record about that. And it's a little more subdued and stripped back than his usual output. But there's always still those juicy synthesizers that I can't get enough of. And so I think a really solid record from him, and it was a really nice month.
So a mixture of party anthems and more reflective moments, as well as a little jab at those who voted in the poll. But the big Kiley, you're on a bit of a roll. I think April you're gonna be securing a victory. So it's looking good. Don't worry, you're in a bit of a vein of form on that front. And so
nobody messed it up.
It's looking fairly secure, to be fair. But yeah, we'll wait till next month to comment more on that. So Karl, how about you for highlights away from the 5 albums we'll run through in a mo?
Yeah, I mean, I'll second Kiley, the ones that almost made it on the poll, Sasami and then Green Tea Peng as well. Both fantastic records. And then one that I had down for, I don't think, obviously it wasn't my poll pick, but one that was kind of in the mix for me this month, didn't end up going with it, was Nightlife by The Horrors. I didn't pick it. I think they'd had some change in personnel since their last album. the singles hadn't really grabbed me, and with it being like 8 years since their last album, where I was kind of settled with like that was their final album because it ended with Something to Remember Me By. We hadn't heard from them in so long, so I kind of made my peace with them. So yeah, going into this one, my expectations were too high. Should never have doubted them for a second, because this is as good as anything they've done before. It's dark, it's industrial, it's gothic, it's psych, it's electronic. It's just an endlessly intriguing listen from start to finish. And it's one of those where, take the singles out of the context of the album and they don't really sing to you. But yeah, in the context of like the whole experience here, just really kind of hit home. So yeah, it's one of those, like, if you liked the Horrors before, I guarantee you'll love this project, and this new kind of iteration of the band. Highlights from start to finish: Aerial, the opener, LA Runaway, More Than Life, Lotus Eater. Yeah, just a brilliant effort from a band that, yeah, yet to miss since their second record, Primary Colours, for me. Just keep on hitting the nail on the head. And yeah, I'd say that was, other than the ones Kylie mentioned, Lucy Dacus I'll also just give a quick shout out to. And then I'll also very quickly shout out the Lottery Winners for getting a UK #1 album, their second UK #1 album. Obviously, we had them on the pod last month talking about that record and the making of it. Honestly, the nicest guys in music. Yeah, just an absolute pleasure to talk to. And yeah, really chuffed for them to get that second #1 album for a band of their size, a great achievement. So yeah, great march.
More than I bargained for. I think you said you had one highlight before we started, so I counted 5.
Yeah, I mean, Kylie kind of got it spinning a bit.
Got the ball rolling. Yeah, a couple of the near misses on the poll. Obviously, Green Tea Peng actually was the one which pushed one of the winner very close. And then yes, do listen out to the podcast Karl has done with the lead singer of the Lottery Winners. So it's a good shout out. Definitely needs to be done. And yeah, the Horrors, that's on my massive list of things I still need to catch up on just from this year. There's just so many releases, I can never keep up with them. But hope I can, particularly based on your review and being a fan of theirs in the past. So yeah, I mean, I've just got the one, which is a gig. Saw Rachel Lavelle at St Pancras Old Church in London, and yeah, she's this quite quirky singer from Ireland who we encountered last year with our 2023 Choice Music Prize pod. And yeah, when I saw she was playing in London, thought I'd check it out because yeah, there's some absolutely fantastic kind of transcendent songs on her debut record, which was the one nominated last year. And seeing it in a live setting, particularly this church where I've seen one gig there before as well. Yeah, really brought it home. She's not the most chatty in between songs. It was quite hard to even hear what she was saying in between songs. So very kind of delicate presence on stage, but one who's brimming with talent, and was a very enjoyable evening, which took my gig tally to 2 after a sort of similar vibe with Hayden Thorpe in February with you, Karl. So yeah, it's
Nice.
Getting into the livelier stuff after the kind of first months of the year, just with the more ethereal kind of music in some really lovely settings. Yeah, enjoyed that. And then there's the 5 albums, so that's what we'll move on to next. And first up, we have Till the Morning by Brian D'Addario. I think this was Kylie's pick.
Yeah,
but correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In which case, Kylie, what did you make of Till the Morning?
I mean, it's, I guess at this point, however many Twigs albums, EPs, but now solo Brian, the Daddario brothers in my book can't do anything wrong. Well, there's nothing outside of what we usually hear from the Lemon Twigs on this record. Sometimes, that solo album can. If Brian came out with a house record or something, I would be really surprised and get him a
I would
yeah,
give that.
yeah, give him a pat on the back. Yeah, this is I think you mentioned it in your review, Andrew, that these aren't necessarily anything different, but also songs that Brian felt that didn't really fit into anything the Lemon Twigs were working on. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a great once again more 60s, I think, than some of the more recent Lemon Twigs records. Good throwback. I think my one knock on it is that I miss Michael on this record, and not that I can choose, but a lot of the time I kind of enjoy Michael's songs more, a little more of that loosey goosey rock and roll energy that he brings. But there's no denying that Brian is a phenomenal songwriter, and it's a lovely little record, and yeah, glad he decided to put it out. I really enjoyed it.
So yeah, they are a continual presence on this pod with the third year in a row, and from what I understand, another Twigs album to come later this year as well.
That's the rumor.
You never know, it might be 4 in 3 years, which we're reviewing on here. Let's wait and see. But for now, we'll focus on this solo effort. So Karl, are you in agreement with Kiley there? Sort of continuing that trend of high quality albums which the brothers produce.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Kylie said, safe to say that this Purple Patch isn't exclusive to the pair of them together. I don't think. This is a really wonderful album. It like you say, it's exactly what you expect it to be. Timeless songs that feel like they've been, just plucked out of a different era. Everything that just makes the Twigs great has been translated to this solo project. The title track, fantastic opener. Love that piano melody that just kind of runs through it. Song of Everyone, fantastic. Very kind of reminiscent of Simon and Garfunkel, which obviously those comparisons have been made before. But yeah, I'd say my favourite tracks are definitely in the second half. Absolutely adore Company, which is mostly just, Brian and a piano until that kind of like whirring, like static kind of comes in. It's just like a really wonderful song full of like nostalgia and melancholy, and yeah, just really great track. And then balanced beautifully by This Summer, which comes straight afterwards, which again, love the vocal work, love those bluesy riffs. Just a really cracking song. And then the other one I wanted to shout out was Useless Tears, which, I'm a sucker for anything that's like a bit theatrical, got some orchestration on it, and that's a song that's got an abundance of both. Reminds me a lot of the Divine Comedy. Again, another one like a lot of Brian's and Michael's and the Twigs work does in general. But yeah, definitely one of my favorites on here. And yeah, it's another release from them with no real low points, just a really great collection of songs that feel like, classic tracks that have been around, in your subconscious your whole life. And, if you can bottle that feeling, you're onto a winner. So yeah, it's one of those like kind of touch on it. Yeah, like, and you did in your review, Andrew, as well. I think you could sit here and say, well, is it enough of a deviation to what the Twigs are doing with the solo project? But when the songs are, this good, I don't really care. But it's more of the same in this case. So yeah, just fantastic effort, packed with highlights. Another great album from Brian.
Yeah, can only echo, both of your thoughts here. You referred to the article I did for 5 to 9, the review there. I mean, that sums it up really, and also makes this feel like I'm treading quite far back in the year now at the end of April to the back of this album, which was I think beginning of March, and then obviously with the review preview sort of late Feb. So yes, it was dark train journeys into work, which was the main kind of setting for listening to this, but it certainly boosted those, I can say. As, like you both say, just continues that rich vein of fantastic songwriting, which we've highly introduced the Lemon Twigs to. Certainly to me, I think you were already aware of them, Karl, but on the pod a couple of years ago, and ever since then I've just lapped up anything new which they've released, and it's just been a great kind of 3 releases in 3 years. It doesn't change the dial too much, as referred to, and so you've referred to as well, but more just sort of where that inspiration comes from with the nostalgia, in the music they create. And here I got a bit more Bob Dylan than I've heard probably on the previous 2 Lemon Twigs albums. It might be just because you can't escape Bob Dylan in the media with the with the Timothy Chalamet film and everything else. So maybe that influenced my thoughts as well. But yeah, I mean, I'll just sort of add the ones which I think were the best in terms of this album. So I agree with you, Karl. Useless Tears, that one, the theatrical nature of it is really good. Mention of Paupers and Beggars, which make me think of like Beatles songs, but also a bit kind of Queen style joint vocals in the chorus. And then my other highlights of the album is the title track, which I think is very Bob Dylan like, and yeah, just great ode to the morning. And then the middle section of Only to Ease My Mind, which is just lovely hush guitar about wanting to banish the devils in his mind, and then Flash in the Pan, which is quite a country psych tinged song. Asking for forgiveness from God, which is kind of a bit of a theme across this album, which again hasn't really been explored from what I've heard from the Twigs so far. So a bit of a deviation there, but yeah, just excellent guitar there, and just an album you can sink into. You mentioned this summer. That's one I'll need to hark back to now that the sun's out over here.
For sure.
So yeah, it's a very strong thumbs up from the 3 of us there for Till the Morning. And we move on to the second album from March. It's Dead Channel Sky by Clipping. And this was selected by Phil Taylor, aka The Music Observer. As well as his own blog, Phil writes for the likes of Left Lion, Clash, and the DIY New Bulletin. And you can keep up with Phil's work by following @music_observed on Instagram. But here I will hand over again to you, Karl, to kick us off on Dead Channel Sky. So what did you make of it?
I don't think I'm the best one to go over that. Karl, you want to go over that?
Okay, we'll swap.
I mean, I can do, yeah. So I mean, they're one of those that, although been around for 10 years, I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about Clipping before last month. So other than us discussing, I think that it was a hip hop record when it was picked by Phil. No other real context, I would say, going into this one. But yeah, I think with that, not really having any expectations going in, it ended up being one of the most thrilling first listens of an album I've had all year, for sure. It's one of those that, just immediately comes storming out the gate, reminded me of Chemical Brothers meets Jedi Mind Tricks or Army of Pharaohs, just these, big electronic beats and intricate, like, rapid fire bars flying at you from every angle. Obviously got shades of, the Prodigy in those early cuts, that kind of techno charged trio of Dominator, Change the Channel, Run It, just fantastic start to the record. It locks you in straight away. And then while the intensity and the pace of the record does drop slightly after that, it still hits you for some, like, again, just really thrilling moments all the way through. Like the speed at which David Diggs raps on Dodger is just hypnotic and just mind blowing. Like, obviously reminded me of Eminem's Rap God, but it's just absolute. When someone's rapping at that speed, it's just hard not to like just be blown away by it. And then, straight after that, we get like the stomp of Scams, which obviously I've said to you guys how much I love that track. Just an utter earworm of a song. Tia No More rocks up on that. Just a great verse in the back end. And then probably my favorite cut on the whole thing, Keep Pushing, just got those pulverizing synths that just get, chopped up into, with these like gorgeous, luscious strings. And, it's one of the tracks where David actually like sings as well. And it just makes for such a, fascinating like juxtaposition of sounds in that song that shouldn't work together, but just somehow does. Really fantastic. Mood organ as well, great. Mirror Shades, I'm not sure if you got this, Kylie, but felt like a Confidence Man track to me.
Yeah.
Which again, something completely different to what came before. Then we get, one of the guys who was on the pod previously, A$AP Rock, coming on Welcome Home Warrior. And then we get that, frantic kind of drum and bass finale on Ask What Happened that kind of wraps everything up. So, it's one of those that just hits you with a barrage of sounds and styles from start to finish. And all I could say is thank you, Phil, for picking this one and, bringing it to my attention. Just an absolute blast. Dazzling, impressive, eclectic, just everything that, I want from a hip hop record. And this is definitely set the standard for me in 2025 for that genre. Just fantastic.
Very, very strong review there. So Kylie, can you match that or your
My
praise?
apologies. You cut out there when you said what the album was, and I was like, wait, what are we talking about?
Yes. All right.
Clipping. Talking about clipping.
Yeah.
I think clipping. They're part of kind of what the hip hop that I'm drawn to. That's mainstream hip hop right now. It's just for me kind of in a rut and not all that interesting. But clipping is one of those that they've been around for over 10 years, and I would put them in there with my favorites: Soap and Mike Eagle, Billy Woods, Danny Brown, that just have biting themes and challenging beats. It's not just the same trap beat over and over. And I think I missed their last record, so it was great to get back in it with Dead Channel Sky here. I love all the old modem dial-up stuff that ties this record together while working it into the beats. I think the only thing that holds it back is that, like a lot of hip hop records, the interludes. I think you could cut a lot of those and the album wouldn't suffer. The case in point, when this came along, I was so excited because Nels Cline was featured on Malleus, and for those that don't know, legendary guitarist that's been playing with Wilco for probably the last 15 years or so, and especially live when Wilco's kind of in their dad rock groove, which I use as a compliment. I love Wilco. Nels Cline is always one of the part of the show that will just shred and pull you out of that. And like even in this case, I think we could have cut it and it would have been better. So I think a little bit tighter. I would have been more into this record. But that being said, I loved it, and I'm glad that Phil picked it. It's always great to get some left field hip hop on on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, quite an about turn, I think, from previous selections by Phil. And Clipping is one of these bands where I felt I kind of knew them, and then I listened and I was like, I definitely don't. I was getting them confused with kind of a more electronic based artist in the UK, which usually has some quite off-putting kind of visuals to go alongside the music. I thought it was that sort of thing, which would be even more left field, to be fair. So I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, the modem sort of sound. If you like that, this album's for you. It's pretty much there throughout. I mean, I love that in terms of the cohesion of the album and kind of, I mean, it's kind of quite unhinged, I think, actually, and I'm not sure I fully actually get a lot of where their heads are at. Particularly lyrically, and Karl, you mentioned the speed of David's rapping. I mean, I was really reminded of Andre 3000 before he picked up a flute, and was part of Outkast and rapped. That sort of speed and that kind of delivery was what I got from his rapping. So it's very enjoyable, that set to this kind of almost Resident Evil kind of AI dystopian world, which you basically inhabit when you're in this record, and I mean, I was a bit daunted by I think it's about an hour long or so, and that was one thing, but actually when I was able to deconstruct it, it was just one where I was very happy to be in that world, and yeah, it's just full of invention, full of creativity. I know, let's have a look at some of the notes here. For Go, I've got sci-fi craziness. Change the Channel is almost like rap punk. Sort of robotic army, Terminator style. And there's some absolutely great lyrics on here, which are just so weird. Dominator is about this kind of weird robot consciousness, so there's that kind of robot. If you're into that kind of theme, then this will very much be for you, as well as the modem sounds. Dodger kind of seems to be referring to a robotic police state, and like I say, more Terminator style lyrics. And Welcome. I mean, the last two tracks, are probably the standouts. The one with Aesop Rock, which is
speaking of quick, right?
Sorry,
speaking of quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and speaking of adding strange words into rap, because this one, it seems to be about like, and I suppose you can get kind of a bit of a Black Mirror vibe from this as well, because it seems to be sort of embedding yourself in a video game is a lot of the kind of lyrical imagery used here, and being the hero of this video game. But that's fantastic. And then they kind of make sense on Ask What Happened the Last. But like just when you've been in a bit of a whirlpool throughout, Ask What Happened comes in, and actually they turn their attention to what's going on in the world here and now, and serving as a warning for the big tech takeover, which is very much fully in swing. So that one really sort of hit after going through it. But just dizzying, like I say, unhinged, I think, but ultimately a lot of fun, and one which I'd be happily would just carve off an hour and just like I say, almost that video game escapism, I suppose. Not that I'm a video gamer, but I get it. That's two down, and two albums with just fully positive reactions. Will this be maintained? Our third album is Lonely People with Power by Deafheaven. This was picked by Karl for the poll and squeaked ahead of Green Tea Peng, as we spoke about a little bit earlier. So thanks to everyone who voted. And Karl, over to you.
Yeah, really glad this one ended up on the board for this month. I think, like so many, came to Deafheaven through their second album, Sunbather. I think before that, I'd always enjoyed my heavy music, but black metal up until that point wasn't something I ever dabbled in or listened to. So, it was one of those where I saw the acclaim that Sunbather was getting online. And it was kind of at that time where, I was just starting to write about music, and dived into it and was just absolutely captivated by it. The cliche black gaze fusion, as it would become known, and just mixing these really dark vocals and black metal riffs, but with the vibrancy of these shoegaze passages and stylings. It was just like, well, it was just unlike anything I'd ever heard before at that point. And 2013 did my first album of the year list, and this landed at number 3 in what was like an absolutely stacked year. It was up 2, so it's one that I actually listened to as well when this one got on the board. So still an album 12 years later that I've got a lot of time for. Still sounds great. But just followed them from there. New Bermuda immediately hit the same heights. Ordinary Corrupt Human Love I didn't take to quite as much, but I know, the big hardcore Deafheaven fans really adored that record. That's probably my least favourite of theirs. But probably the most important album for the context of this one is their last record, 2021's Infinite Granite, which, hugely divisive album for the band's fan base. Saw them just completely abandon the black metal side of their sound and lean fully into the shoegaze side. George Clark switching the screamed vocals out for clean vocals. And it did cause quite a stir. I personally really love that record. It still felt like Deafheaven to me, and there's some fantastic songs on there. Ended up in my top 5 of the year. But I feel like with some fans not taking to that record, it did leave the question mark of, okay, where they're going to go next? Where do they go from here? Because, do they continue down this path and, isolate some of their older fans, but potentially gain new ones on the way? We've kind of seen that with bands like Bring Me the Horizon and Architects, who have also kind of, mellowed out in recent years. Or was it, do they go back to what they do best? And I think with Lowly People with Power, the answer is sort of, it's the latter, but also sort of neither. It's like, I would say, like, this is the heaviest album they've ever done. Like, the riffs here are just relentless. They're brutal. It's a complete 180 to what we heard from them on Infinite Granite. But it's kind of new, but it also feels like a return to that classic Deafheaven sound. For me, this is like a new superior version of what they did before. There is like this noticeable evolution here, but also a good callback to everything that they've done before. They've taken all like the best elements from their previous 5 albums and delivered for me like what feels like the ultimate kind of Deafheaven experience. And I absolutely love it. Like I said, this is like their heaviest record yet. The riffs are thunderous, the vocals are scorching, but to avoid it becoming like overwhelming, they drop in these brief moments of like serenity that just let like the smoke clear for just a second, and then like the fire starts up again. And I mean, the first half of this, just breathtaking. That run from Doberman through to Amethyst is just seismic. It like just doesn't let up. Heathen, Magnolia, the 2 singles that they kind of released before, sandwiched in there. Really adore Garden Route as well. And then after you get like this 8-minute hurricane of Amethyst, we get that atmospheric passage with Jay Matthews, the vocalist on that one, just allows you to catch your breath for like a bit of a moment. Like the start of that song, it reminded me a bit of Nadine Shah. And then right at the back end, you get this thunderous drop out of nowhere. It jolts me up every time I hear it, where you got George Clark coming back in with like those evil growls and everything's just coming back to life again. And then it's back off to the races. You got Revelator, Body Behavior. The latter, one of my favorite tracks on here. We even get another breather. Paul Banks of Interpol comes in with like a spoken word poem in the back half. And then you get two really dramatic, quite soaring tracks in the back end with Winona. And then, the last track, Marvelous Orange Tree, just incredible. So I've tried to breeze through that as quickly as I can. But it's one of those that the more I spin it, I think, some Bathers are a tough one to top, but the more I spin it, I think this could be their best album yet. Obviously, won't be for everyone with the harsh scream vocals, but I think if you like your shoegaze, you like Deafheaven's previous work, you like your heavy music, I don't think you could ask for anything more than what we get on this one. It's just, for me, it's epic in every way. And I just hope one day I get a chance to see them live, because there's still a band that 12 years later I've never seen live. So that's one on my list.
Make it happen. So I mean, Kylie, you're another fan of Deafheaven. So do you agree there with Karl's take?
100%. I think this is a just phenomenal record, and before getting into it, just got to say, Infinite Granite haters, GTFO, come on, that album is so good, and like applause for a black metal band trying something different instead of just going to the same formula over and over. With that being said, as I said in the group chat, I like my Deafheaven anyway. And when Magnolia came out at the beginning of the year, it was just an immediate hell yeah, just so glad to have them back doing this. I echo, mostly what Karl said on this record. I think, yes, the screaming vocals aren't for everyone, but I think they also went with an interesting choice for producer on this with Justin Mel Johnson, who's been around forever, and in capacity as a touring musician and producer, and just taking a look back to the last few years. He's produced St. Vincent, Ali X, who we also talked about, M83, which is, completely different from what we're working with here. And I think the way that he mixed those vocals in with the rest of the music, it's abrasive, but it's not over the top like a lot of, black metal that I'm not usually into. And, Deafheaven is one of those bands that is lucky to get that crossover. There's a lot of fans that aren't necessarily into the genre, including myself, that absolutely adore them. I think it works really great. And, I don't know what the hell he's saying half the time, and that's okay. It just kind of works in as another instrument in the mix. But yeah, I mean, Karl stamped same thing. This is just a wonderful record, and I'm in the same dilemma of going back and forth, where Sunbather obviously is their classic record, and a lot of good memories in that. But this is just an amazing album, and I was just spinning it again this morning, and just like, damn, I think over the course of this year, hopefully, who knows, it might take my spot as my favorite record of theirs. It's a really mature record. They know what they're doing.
There we go. So two very strong reviews there, and then the outlier over here. I mean, Karl, you sort of said when they were on, like, not sure in terms of how I would take to it, and this is my first taste of Deafheaven. I mean, I think I scratched my head quite a bit because I mean, on album of the year with the Users, it's like virtually number one as well. You guys absolutely waxing lyrical about it, and then I listened to it, and and to be fair, it wasn't a criticism when I said it sounded like Cradle of Filth. In terms of his vocals, the theatre of it. Like, I actually, back in the day, quite, like that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think relentless was another word you used to describe the album, Karl. Kiley, you just said there, the abrasive vocals. And that's the thing which I just can't really... I just can't ever think, oh, yeah, I'm going to stick on a bit of Deafheaven now and just make sure that, I'm not playing it out loud if anyone else is around.
You might be an Infinite Granite kind of guy, then.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Philippe was saying that would be an interesting entry point. And then maybe I'd scratch my head more about the rest of it and think, no, you should be a shoegaze band or whatever. And the kind of anti Deafheaven sort of fan group perhaps in that way. But yeah, like, I think there are some good moments. There are, the drama is there, and and memorable moments as well. I think, Karl, as you mentioned, the one with the female vocalist where just suddenly there's that sort of and the vocals come back in again just to sort of wake you just as you foolishly might think that you can relax. Yeah, I can appreciate it, but I think it goes back to one of your sayings, Karl, where it's kind of like admiring it without like loving it myself. And I think I get why there is so much acclaim for this album, and what Deafheaven is doing, but personally, yeah, I think the vocals is hard for me to get over, and yeah, there are moments where the music itself is just like, I mean, probably the drums in particular is the thing. I've just like, it's kind of formless. It's just like, and which I get, it's supposed to be a kind of dissonant atmospherics and stuff, but yeah, I suppose, not being a complete stranger to metal music of that size, I'm more into the more kind of intricate drumming of, say, Mastodon or in Trivium or that side. Kind of that's where I will get in, and the drumming on here didn't quite lure me in like that heavier stuff has done in the past. So we've done well. We've had 3 albums where there's been almost universal acclaim, and that we've reached that first kind of a divergence. And it'd be boring if we just all like the same albums.
Oh, sure.
Everyone listening, it's like good to get a bit of a different opinion. But I feel on this, like, I feel like I'm the only one in the world. I know I'm not, but it's just when you're so sucked into the album of the year and stuff, like this is just like everyone is loving this album. And
this was I was going to say, this was my revenge for Richard Dawson last month.
yeah. Well, like I say, might be seeing him tomorrow night. But yeah, that album, I love that End of the Middle album. So there we go. And there might be some more different opinions on our next album. So our 4th album is Drive to Goldenhammer by Divorce. Yeah, this is my pick. It could have been Karl's, because I know obviously being a Nottingham-based band, you're very familiar with them. And actually my sort of entry point was your recommendation, and then seeing, to my absolute shock, that they were playing in Reading, and Reading had booked a kind of up and coming band, which doesn't happen that often. So yeah, piqued my interest. Saw them live. Very impressed with that live show at the end of last year, I think it was. And yeah, just felt it's been a bit of a tradition as well with our March album of the month podcast that we have kind of the debut album. So 2023, that was Boy Genius, which kind of universally acclaimed outside of this group. Then last year we had The Last Dinner Party with their debut album, of course, so much exposure, and again broadly enjoyed by the three of us, and that sort of leveled it out. So yeah, third kind of debut album for the March album of the month pod, and how we feel it. I mean, for myself, yeah, really impressed. I think this is a great first without being a classic. It's right up there. And I think, you know, in terms of what debuts there might be this year, albeit the first album we've spoken about was a debut, but we're very familiar with Brian Daddario. This feels like, you know, a more kind of unknown territory in terms of getting a full release. They've released a few EPs with loads of great tracks on. So how are they going to fare here? And a lot of them have been out as singles. So I suppose maybe half of it was quite familiar anyway, and really been hammered home. But on Drive to Goldenhammer, I think it comes across really well. I like how the placing of the various songs and the singles, and yeah, it just showcases what they do best. The kind of shared vocals, you know, front man and front woman here, and got a nice thing going on in that indie space, I suppose, sort of similar vein to English Teacher from last year. To go a bit further back, I get shades of The Beautiful South. And I would say that her name escapes me right now. The female vocalist.
Tiger.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Tiger. Yeah, I knew it was one I should have remembered. She I think her vocals win the day. Although I do really like how they sort of overlap, and I do like the songs where the guy takes the lead. But for me, it's more of a Tiger show here, and that's where you get those moments which saw. I'm thinking probably mainly Karen here, which isn't about a certain type of person, but it's yeah, more about someone they know, and that's a really great kind of vehicle for the range which she has, and I think her range is far greater than her co-vocalist. But I think there's kind of few which go better than the singles. So the depth is maybe not as great as it might have been, but that's, I mean, that's a hugely high bar to so it's only a slight criticism, and I feel harsh even saying that, because like I say, the singles are absolutely fantastic. Some of the best singles which have been released over the past sort of 6 to 9 months. You know, Antarctica, All My Freaks being the absolute standout for me, and Hangman as well, another great one, and then Pill was one of the latter releases. But yeah, the only one, like I say, probably Karen is the only other one which sort of is at that level. And then the rest are all just great songs. The only one which might drift a little bit, probably Mercy, the last song at the end. Just didn't really grab me as much as everything else they did. But I think it's hard to kind of pin them down to one genre or one type. There's just so much going on here, and I think what I like about them is that they don't sit still. They in one song you get one influence, and they talk about country music and their interest there, and you get a little bit of that maybe in one song, and in another it's just a straight up sort of rock tune. And yeah, I think what they're producing is very much their own, and that's probably the biggest compliment I can hand them, I would say, is that they've got something quite unique going on. And yeah, just hugely impressed with this as an opening salvo, and a band are really excited to see where they go next. So I'm seeing a few nods and smiles from Karl, who I'm going to go to next.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's one of those where, you know, the Nottingham music scene is just really having a moment right now. We have so many great artists, and acts coming through, and yeah, it's great to see a good chunk of them getting the national attention and exposure that they are getting. I think Divorce are the one that are right at the forefront of that. Definitely one of them, as you say, Andrew, one of the most talked about kind of like new indie bands coming through. Had that like NME cover the other month. The tour for later on in the year is quickly selling out. You mentioned the reviews for this album, outstanding as well. And yeah, I think it's thoroughly deserved. Just brilliant live band. And I think this is a very accomplished, fully formed debut that I thought it would be as well. You mentioned their EPs. I think they really laid the groundwork, and I feel like they've mastered their style in the last few years before getting to this point. Just this country and folk influenced indie with those, amazing harmonies that you mentioned between Felix and Tiger. They just bounce off each other so well. And they both have, for me, they both have great tones to their voices. But yeah, ultimately, I think what stands out with this collection is, similar to what stood out from the Last Dinner Party's debut last year, was that, these songs all feel like instantly familiar. It can sometimes be a curse to release so many singles before the album arrives, but I've played this album so much. I still love these songs. The way they flow into the pace of the record is just perfect. I think they do a great job of, staggering those singles throughout the record as well. You kind of got Antarctica and Lord, straight at the top. And then that run, as you mentioned, of like Hangman, Pill, All My Freaks in the back half. I think it just paces the record really nicely. And then for me, for me, it's actually some of the less familiar moments that end up hitting the hardest. Absolutely love Jet Show. Just some fantastic guitars on there. Feels like a real hoedown. And then you've got a song like Complete Contrast in Old Broken String, which, Felix takes the lead on that one. Like similar, it's kind of like the counterpoint to Karen, with Tiger taking the lead. That's the one that Felix takes the lead on. And it's just, heartbreakingly tender, beautifully arranged, beautifully written. And yeah, probably my favorite of the unreleased tracks, that one. And then, to be honest, Mercy right at the end, spiritual title track too, it is maybe more understated than like what comes before it. But, just that raw kind of acoustic guitar with, Felix and Tiger's harmonies on that track. I absolutely love that one as well. I think, I won't go on too much more because we kind of covered it, but I'd say the only track that I'm not completely sold on is Where Do You Go? I think it's one of those that I like it enough as a standalone cut, and Tiger absolutely puts her all into the performance of it. Like her vocal performance on that track is like, reminds me a bit of St. Vincent, which is obviously never a bad thing. Like just real, the emphasis on and the growl that she puts into it. But I think it just, every time I get to that point in the track list, it just sticks out. It's a very different style to everything else that's comes before, and then Mercy after it. It just doesn't quite fit in with the album for me. I think if it was up to me, I would have put Gears, which is the standalone single that they did release just before the album. I'd maybe put that in that spot just to kind of continue that. But that's the only one for me that feels maybe slightly shoehorned and out of place. But, like you say, Andrew, minor quibbles is what we've got here. It hasn't stopped me playing this album to death ever since it came out. Fully expect it to be nominated for the Mercury Prize later this year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And yeah, just a fantastic debut from a Nottingham band, and yeah, very bright future ahead for these guys.
Okay, guys, that's the view from Nottingham and then the wider UK. But yeah, over to Santa Fe and Kiley and the quibbles. So ours are minor. Minor or major for you, Kiley, on this record?
I'll be the outlier. Major.
Major.
I just a little sidebar before I get into this. Karl, when you were going over your other albums of the month, you made me poop a little bit because I thought we were talking about Green Tea Pang. And here I was looking forward to for the last week seeing the praises of Andrew for picking that record because I absolutely love that album, and it's going to be one of my. I know I'm going to be playing it all summer. I've been listening to it a couple times a week. So Green Tea Pang, we could be talking about that. I thought we were. With that being said, yeah, I did listen to this record a couple of times last month, and I don't know what it is. I wanted to like it because they are a Knots band, and Karl, you've made me more curious about what's going on there, and it's fun to hear, about that scene. And so I was glad Andrew picked it. I was looking, I thought it was the poll. Anyway, yeah, I'm complete opposite of you guys. This is just major label indie music that goes in one ear and out the other to me. And, I will say, I think the songs when Tiger is singing are much stronger and much more captivating, hold my attention. But when Felix, no personal, hate to Felix, but when I see major label indie rock, like that's when I just zone out are those Felix songs. So yeah, with a couple of listens last month because I thought we were going to talk about Green Tea Pang. Yeah, not a fan of this record, and it's funny. I think this is also just another one of those that they're hitting it huge in the UK, and as far as I know, not really making a splash over here. So, I haven't read anything about them outside of the pod and reading some reviews when it came out. So, yeah, maybe more Tiger songs. And I do have to say as well, I did go back because, all the reviews cited how different the EPs were from this record. And Andrew, you mentioning Boy Genius, that debut in March. I feel the exact same way about Boy Genius and Divorce. Is give me the EPs, the LP, not really my thing.
Yeah, and I think Karl mentioned as well, like Gears could easily have made the cut. Like from the EPs, there's so many good tracks, and it can sometimes be a risk to kind of ignore that to move on. But so I think there's a bit of a balance because of how many singles there are off this album. But definitely could have just not even added any of the non-singles if they'd have added in an EP as well. Done a bit of a Bon Iver, but that's for me. So there we go. A mixed bag for.
Let's say 2/3 pretty good.
2/3, okay. Just like Deafheaven there. So
yeah.
66.6% recurring. Right. Finally, we have the Melancholy Brunettes (bracket and Sad Women) close brackets by Japanese Breakfast. And this is what I was a bit confused about. I guess this was your pick, Karl.
This was one that I picked this month simply because I think you and Kiley both claimed the ones that I was most excited for already. So it was it was a luxury.
Remember if I picked this or not?
No, that's why I asked at the beginning. I didn't know which was.
I think Kiley picked it, and then
Brian
announced his, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, that one." So I was like,
"Yeah."
Did Kiley a solid, and was like, "Oh, I'm quite intrigued by that record as well. I'll pick that one." So,
and are we the Melancholy Brunettes now who are talking about this? Is just to clarify,
yeah, that's it. That could be our
cool.
nickname.
No sad women on this spot.
But I think it was one of those. Kiley was hyped for this, and having enjoyed their last effort, Jubilee, was happy to get on board, pick this one. I'll start by saying, much like the Deafheaven record, this is a well, maybe not much like the Deafheaven record, but certainly this is a big gear change, I would say, from the previous record. Again, I think where that one was full of these, big pop moments like Be Sweet, which absolutely fantastic single. And moments like that, just uplifted and really quite joyful. As you can probably guess from the title of the album, this is very much the flip side to that. It is what it says on the tin. It's for, melancholy women, brunettes, or, I don't know where we fall in, maybe miserable geezers and bolden blokes like myself.
Yeah.
That'll be on the extended version later in the year.
Yeah, that'll be the deluxe. So yeah, expectedly a gloomier listen than its predecessor, but at the same time, some really beautiful moments. Here Is Someone is this like really quiet, understated opener. Orlando in Love, which was the single, which I absolutely adored. Michelle Zorner's voice, those strings, just a brilliant, brilliant track. Honey Water could be something off like the New Dad record that we reviewed last year. Then we get hints of The Cure and the instrumentation on Mega Circuit. Leader and the Little Girl, really stripped back song. You basically just got these, really sparse kind of acoustic guitars and Michelle Zorner's like vocals cutting into like, the dead space that kind of runs through that track. And then we get the dude himself, Jeff Bridges turning up on the, Men in Bars, which is like this really bluesy kind of number, which is like a pleasant surprise in the back end. And then, yeah, it's kind of more of the same from there. Winter in LA, Magic Mountain, again, just really tender, really intimate. The record itself reminded me a lot of Owen, in the fact that, it kind of gave me like the Falls of Sioux air about it. Almost like it could be a companion piece to that record in, the textures and the feelings and the moods that it puts forward, which obviously in my book, replicating Mike Kinsella is never going to be a bad thing. So yeah, I'll just say another really pleasant record. Absolutely flies by as well. 30 minutes long, no bad moments, and it was not what I was expecting at all, given their previous record. But yeah, I think it's a really good counterpart to Jubilee, where that was kind of like this, happy and eclectic kind of pop record. This is a slightly darker, more stripped back affair, and it was one of those that at first I wasn't completely sold on it because it wasn't what I was expecting. But having lived with it a bit more and played it a few more times, it's an album that's just really easy listening, slowly starts to kind of stick with you the more you kind of come back to these songs. And yeah, it's one of those interesting to see where it lands come the end of the year. I think when it kind of hits, winter, it'll start to really sort of dig its sounds in, shall we say. So yeah, right now though, still a thumbs up from me.
A thumbs up from you, Kylie. It's essentially your second pick for this one.
It is not a thumbs up for me, and I think it's my my biggest disappointment of the year so far. I would consider Japanese Breakfast and Michelle's Honor one of my favorite bands of the last. It's almost a decade now since Psychopomp came out, and I love her. I love the band. She's kept a consistent band through most of it. And Japanese Breakfast is one of those groups that, my wife and I both share a huge admiration of. We've seen them many times, and I thought Jubilee was fantastic and was, obviously really excited about this. Like Magnolia for Deafheaven and saying, woo, Orlando in Love. I was kind of worried it felt like a smaller piece to something more, which it really is. To start with the positives, I think when things do going, quote unquote, as far as this record goes, Honey Water, Mega Circuit, and Picture Window are all really, really awesome songs. Kind of wish that there was more of that going on with this record. And then the other one that I'm half into is Winter in LA. Obviously indebted to Pet Sounds. But that song, it sounds kind of half baked to me, which the rest of the record gives me that vibe as well. I've listened to this album so much. I've been trying to figure out how a record can be so well produced and full of really great textures, but also feel half baked at the same time. I think I've been thinking about a lot, and I can officially say that even albums for Japanese breakfast are not my favorite, and I like the odds. So Psychopomp and Jubilee, I think, are fantastic records. Soft Sounds I didn't like as much, but I do more so than this. It's just I appreciate what Michelle Zauner is going for on this record, but it just, for 32 minutes for me, it just drags. And especially Little Girl, Lita, right in there, those songs back to back, and they're very similar. Just bring me down. And as much as I love the dude, one of my idols, love that guy, was excited for him to show up. I guess it was fine. I do have to shout out really quick. It came out for Record Store Day. Jeff Bridges did a archival release called Soft Magic. That's a group of a set of home recordings from 1977 or 1978 that are it's full of drugs and booze and lo-fi sounds. And I have been listening to that far more than I have this record, because it's just a lot more fun. So that there was a moment a couple weeks ago where I thought I'd come around on this record, and then I've gone back into just I hate to use bored with music, because I always find something, but outside of those few tracks, it just, I don't know. I think it feels like a transition record to me. So, in another 3-4 years, because I'm sure there's going to be a huge tour off of this record. We'll see what happens next on the next odd numbered record for Japanese breakfast. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of bummed out about this record.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna lean more towards Karl's review here. I would though the half-baked thing does echo some of my thoughts on this. So I'd say overall it's a very light and delicate album, where a lot of the tracks I really like, but then they don't quite get to that point where I would love. And I'd say that for virtually the entire album, with actually the one absolute standout. And sorry, Kylie, but Men in Bars. I love that song. Love that song. That might feature quite highly in my songs of the year.
Listen to the song about King Kong from 1970s.
It's not that. But about casual relationship with Men in Bars. I mean, there's I don't know. I think what I challenge myself to do is like look at the lyrics, and does it give me a bit more of a portal into the album? And I think potentially by not doing that, that kind of delicate sort of slight nature of the album would have been more grating than I ended up finding it. But I found the lyrics very kind of literary style, They're a bit ye old worldy, and very, very evocative. Almost to the point of trying to shroud the true thoughts and what it's actually all about in this kind of bubble of, like I say, kind of quite, delicate wording. But I actually quite liked what's being done here by Michelle with the lyrics and it's a lot about relationships ultimately. And Men in Bars is kind of the kind of oh no, what have I done kind of thing, but actually it was heading that way, and I don't know, kind of the stasis of a relationship and not really knowing, like, kind of needing and wanting them, but then at the same time feeling a bit uninspired in a relationship. That's the kind of vibes I was getting sort of thematically. So that kind of angle to it warmed me to it more than it might have done if I hadn't have trained myself. And to be honest, it's only for this podcast which I maybe do that so much, or for reviews. Casual listen, I wouldn't have gone into as much detail. Maybe this one would have just fallen down the cracks in that sense. But yeah, I think it was interesting, Karl, you said it reminded you of the Mike Kinsella Owen album. This reminded me of The Land Is Inhospitable and So Are We by Mitski. I think because which I love that album, and this one by Japanese Breakfast, I wouldn't say I love it, but I think it's a very, very good album for me. But it's kind of slightly paler imitation of what Mitski did on a last record, because I suppose the similarities are the very short songs. And I think with Mitski they kind of stuck a little bit more so. But I think actually what they do here with this album, like, you get that same sense basically, and it's like lots of really enjoyable vignettes and actually quite a cohesive album from that lyrical perspective. So I warmed to it after that. I would be more. We'll stick to our trio in a row of 2 out of 3 because of the critical reception. So which makes the next part quite interesting. So we're moving on to the verdict. I'm gonna kick things off here. So for me, 5th is unsurprisingly Deafheaven, and then to 3rd and 4th, it's barely anything between them. But 4th for me is Japanese Breakfast, which means that in 3rd is Divorce. At the beginning of the month, I was certain that Brian Daddario would take the crown, but then Clipping came along with an absolute mad freak out rap album. So they're my album of the month, with Brian Daddario very closely behind.
Hell yeah.
Well, with that enthusiasm, Kiley.
I mean, I'm surprised by that, and I'm excited about it. And I guess my rankings have changed since the beginning of the pod, because I was ready to slot Green Tea Peng in at 2nd.
It would be an interesting move.
So in that case, I'm going to have to go with Divorce at 5, Japanese Breakfast 4, Clipping 3, Brian Daddario 2, and Deafheaven 1. And same as you, those 3 there are interchangeable in my book. I loved all 3 of those records.
There we go. So it looks like there's 3 records in the running as it stands, and it's over to a final compare to deliver the verdict. Karl.
Yeah, I mean, this month was like Sophie's choice for me. These are all like really strong in terms of my year, like album of the year rankings at this point of the year. Green Tea Peng as well, maybe a wild card later on in the year, who knows? But 5 Japanese Breakfast. 4, I've got Brian Daddario. Again, the fact that that's 4th, what a month we've had. 3rd, I've gone Clipping, which again, mad. And then these top 2, literally couldn't separate them. But with the fact it's a debut, with the fact they're from Nottingham, being a little bit biased, I'll go Deafheaven number 2, Divorce number 1. But yeah, for me, Divorce, Clipping, and Brian Daddario and Deafheaven, it's like I could see all of them being in like right up there at this point of the year for me.
So there we go. It's an interesting split, but yeah, Clipping ultimately. Congratulations to Clipping for winning our album of the month for March 2025. Yeah, just 1 point ahead of Brian Daddario there, and then Deafheaven and Divorce only a point behind them. So Japanese Breakfast were quite comfortably last, but as you say, really strong month. So yeah, a very, very enjoyable one. So next month we'll be running the rule over new albums by Bon Iver, Self Esteem, Sleigh Bells, Stella, and The Waterboys. And as ever, you can stay up to date with what we're up to by following 5 to 9 on X and Instagram, New Music Central via @Karl Blakesley via Instagram and Threads, and Mama Mañana Records via @Mama Mañana Records on Instagram. Thanks for listening.
Listen to Free Range Buddhas Friday, May 2nd.
Yes, do it.